Every historical records repository is involved in acquiring records or manuscripts. You may collect materials from your own organization, your local community, or materials that pertain to certain time periods or subject. In many cases, people who own historical documents have strong attachments to them. Acquiring items involves more than signing forms and moving them into your stacks. We're here at the Folklife Center at the Crandal Public Library in Glens Falls to learn how working with a donor is an important part of collecting historical records. This is Todd DeGarmo, Founding Director of the Folklife Center at the Crandal Public Library. Todd is going to discuss how the Folklife Center goes about acquiring donations and how the relationship to the donor is just as important as the donation itself. Hello, Todd.
Hi.
So I wanted to start with asking you, how long do the negotiations take to acquire a collection from someone or an artifact?
You know, I think it depends on who the group is. Sometimes it's very simple. It's somebody bringing in a scrapbook and, we talk a little bit and they want to donate it and they donate it to us and there's not a lot of hassle. But sometimes it's a larger organization and in that case, we have to go through a lot more.
Why would someone donate to this repository?
Well, the Folklife Center was established in '93, but the library itself has been collecting manuscripts, historical collections since 120 years ago. This was the only place in the city that people could bring things, photographs and old albums and things like that. So it's been a repository for quite a long time, and the community respects it, and they know they can come in here to use it, so that's always a nice thing.
Todd, can you give us an example of an organization that has donated to the Folklife Center and the Crandal Public Library?
Yes, I think a good example is the Glens Falls Hospital Guild. They're a volunteer organization about 100 years old over at the hospital in town, and they were looking for a home for their records because the hospital was encouraging them to do something with all their papers. So they came over to get advice from us, and what became a couple sessions of talking to them about their collection became a donation. They decided, and we decided, this is an important community organization, so let's work with them to get their collection here. And it became kind of a longer situation where they did have a lot of papers, but what they were willing to do for us was to send volunteers over here. So for the course of 2 years, they worked with us. They would come in and work under the guidance of our archivist to go through their papers, weed out what's not necessary, old checks and things like that, and then, clean up the collection. And over the course of 2 years, I forget how many people hours they spent, but it was 3 to 6 people once a week for 2 years.
Wow.
They came in and they processed their collection with us. They gave us some donations of money to help pay for some of the new boxes and the acid-free folders and things. And then at the end of the year, the 2 years, we used our gallery out in the outside the reading room to have a big reception. And so people from the hospital and the community came in to kind of celebrate that this collection was here. And so it was a win-win. It was really good for both organizations.
What kind of concerns might a donor have bringing items to the public library and Folklife Center?
I think organizations and families too, they just want to make sure their collections are cared for and that people appreciate them. So we always have a sense of, there's a two-part process that we think about. We want to make sure they're protected and taken care of, but then we also want people to use them. That's really important. So we have a really nice climate-controlled storage area that's secure and only a few people have access to. We can bring things out to patrons to look at. But it's climate controlled, meaning the humidity and temperature is controlled, and it keeps, the papers good and the photographs good. Sometimes you get an organization coming in and they think that they want to deposit their collection here, to keep their collection here, but that's it. We're kind of free storage, and that's not what it is. We have to, the first initial thing is we tell them that you need to donate your collection. It becomes our collection. But we're a public repository. It's your public library. we're the custodians at that point, and then we can do the kinds of things we need to do by being the owners. But that doesn't mean they don't continue to have a relationship. I mean, then we develop, and a lot of the negotiations are, deciding what kind of access their organization has, which people come in to add things or take things away. As a public repository, we always require that once we have it, that patrons, people come and want to do research here, would have access to it. We don't limit access to collections, and if that's a requirement they have, then we're not the right collection repository for them.
Todd, what are some of the challenges in accepting donations?
Oh, space is always a big problem. There's so many collections and so many family papers and photographs. We just have to be very conscious of what the use might be in the future. What's the historic significance of collections? So we have a pretty tight donation policy. We have some wiggle room, but it allows us to say no to things that don't make sense. I mean, we're pretty broad in what we accept, but especially for manuscript type collections and photograph albums, we tend to keep within the region of Glens Falls. If somebody has things from Rochester, we'll recommend that they donate them to Rochester.
Do people ever make financial contributions to the Folklife Center and the Crandal Public Library?
Oh, yeah. No, we rely a lot on that. In terms of collections, we encourage people. I mean, that's part of it. This is a free situation. People come in for free, but nothing's free. Mm-hmm. So if you can, as an organization, give us a little bit of money so we can pay for the boxes or the acid-free, or if you can donate your time to help process the collection, we encourage that. That's really important.
How do you and the Folklife Center find donors, or how do they find you?
I think it's a lot, it's mostly word of mouth these days. I mean, we have a website and everything, but I think the flip side is you only have so much space. So we're somewhat careful. I mean, we actively look for, for example, there's a large Jewish community that's been here for 3-4 generations in Glens Falls, and our collections are pretty awful in terms of documenting that community. So we have put feelers out to that community, and we've gotten some people, talking about giving us some of the temple records, or not so much the temple, but the organizations associated with the temple, and some of the programs they've done with other organizations. So that's starting to happen. But mostly it's more being careful about what we accept, because the word has gotten out that we're a reliable repository for the city or for the district, and so we're getting a lot of calls for people wanting to put their organization records here.
And how important to you is patience in terms of receiving documents or artifacts here once you've found something that you'd like in the collection?
Oh, yeah. No, I think you have to, working with people, you just have to be careful. You don't want to be grabby. You don't want to be concerned as being grabby. I mean, we tend to be a pretty big institution in the region, and so people respect us, but we also want to show the respect back. Mm-hmm. I was thinking a couple years ago, we had a couple come in, and they were looking for a home for their Lake George image collection. They had collected over 20, 30 years, almost 10 cubic feet of old photos and stereo views and postcards. And they were looking for a home for it. They had a summer home up on Lake George, but lived out in Worcester, Massachusetts. And, they came in and we gave them the tour, and they sort of said to us they had this collection, and they were a little bit vague, but, we treat them like everybody. We gave them the VIP tour. And they said, oh, thank you, we're looking at other places, and we didn't hear from them. A year later, even a little more than a year later, we got a phone call going, well, we'd like to donate our collection to you. We've looked at 10 repositories, and we like what you're doing. We like what you're saying, how you'll take care of it and how you'll process it. And so that was out of the blue. We really didn't think we would get this collection, because it's a world-class collection. I mean, it's an amazing collection, and they were happy. And one of the only things they wanted was somebody to appraise it, and we don't do that internally. So we hired somebody to come in who was just blown away by the collection. He stayed longer than he needed to stay, and kind of donated his time, but. He was really happy with the collection. He's a local collector and historian, and so it's nice to be patient. You know, you never know what's going to come back through the door.
Thank you so much, Todd, for talking with
Oh,
us.
it's nice of you to come. Thank you for being interested.
For more information on identifying, acquiring, and documenting historical records, please consult the Strengthening Archives website.